Hey everyone, Lith here, and today I am doing my first video game review of Banished. So let's see how this goes. So Banished is a city builder game with roguelike features, and it's from a Shining Rock Software, LLC, all rights reserved. And apparently it's a one-man dev team, which is pretty impressive. And so let's go into options and check out some things. So input, it looks like we can go ahead and rebind our keys to anything we want, which is pretty standard and also very much needed in all PC games. Go to audio, standard audio settings. These are our video settings. We could have our renderer be DX9 or DX11. Useful for older laptops. Anti-aliasing, texture filtering, yada yada yada. All the same goodies. Okay, game settings. Edge scrolling, okay, some standard RTS controls. Okay, and autosaver. That all looks great. Okay, so let's start a new game. Now here we have a random name generator. So Summertownville. Okay, wonderful. But the more interesting thing I want to call your attention to is this: generate a new seed of map for map generation. So basically this is a random map seed generator. So if we put in any number here, we're going to get a random map. Now if we put in that same map number, we're going to get the exact same map, which is pretty cool if you want to, play the same map with your friends, or you really liked a map and a tornado wiped out your whole village and you want to restart on the same map. Good stuff like that. Starting conditions, disasters, climate, terrain size, which this kind of bugs me a little bit. Why would anyone want to play on a small terrain size? You know what I mean? You get a kick-ass city going and you want to expand it just a little bit, and only because you didn't select this setting, correctly, then you can't really play on. So, yeah, large. Okay, so let's go ahead and load up a game. So first off, I'm going to go ahead and say that I have very much enjoyed this game. It's a very relaxing kind of simulation style game if you're into those games and you like to play something and, let it, alter your mood into a nice relaxed state. This is a good one. You hear the birds chirping in the background and pitter-patter of rain and all that kind of stuff, and it's pretty good. So first off, what's going on here? It looks like I have this barn and a bunch of materials, and I'm next to this big lake, and I got a bunch of villagers with houses over their heads, which I'm guessing means they need houses. But first, let's check out some of the menu systems. So down here, here's our main control bar, where we can go ahead and, select what we want to build and build it. This first menu actually is for speeding up time. So you don't have to wait forever. Okay, the second one's very important though, and this one basically shows all of our windows, which can be all moved to where we want them, which is a very good feature, I think. One thing that I did notice while playing that I would always want some of these windows open, and I would end up closing them myself. I guess that's more my fault than the game's fault, but if you could have an auto lock function on any of these windows, I think that would be pretty cool. Pretty cool. So, now let's check out this map first. Now we see we're by this really big lake here, but in every single map you generate, you're going to have a big river going through your town. And if you'll see, like, here's smaller little rivers, but these don't count. They aren't big enough for trade boats to get down. So eventually, your town's going to want to expand near this big river and have, a trade post, there, so boats can come in and traders can trade items with things you have in surplus and things of that note. Okay. Now down here, this is kind of our main overall window. Says, what's needed in the town, dire needs, so there's 23 people without houses. And then some of our resources, okay, and then the time of the year, and then how many years your town survived, and then this is adults, students, and children. And unfortunately, you can't make the children work. It's just not like that, so that's sad. Here's the temperature, and of course I have mine set for Fahrenheit right now. You can have yours set for Celsius, of course, if you're from most of the planet. So let's go ahead and build a few houses and see how that goes. Okay, and so I see that I have a arrows in front, and I guess that designates a road. Okay, so in fact I'm not going to build it right by the water. Let's just build a couple houses here. And look, they're still standing around doing nothing. So that brings me over here to your professions. Now we have 10 laborers, which is, I guess that's 10 people. And then we have other jobs such as builders, farmers, herdsmen, gatherers, fishermen, so on and so forth. And so if we do a couple builders, then 2 of them are going to start building. And in fact, it looks like a couple of these guys are starting to bring over things. In fact, it looks like a lot of the laborers are starting to bring over the materials. But I'm assuming we're just going to have 2 builders. So, other things we can do is remove resources. So we have all these rocks in our backyard, and also a lot of trees. And so let's go ahead and get rid of those. So you see all those little yellow pickaxe signs on everything. So they're going to go ahead and start chopping down trees and smashing through rocks and putting it into our stockpile over here. And so the one thing I really do like about this game is that you can pretty much build anything right from the beginning. Like you can build a wooden house, like I'm building, or you can build a stone house. And stone houses, they provide more warmth in the winter, so probably not too much more than a wooden house. So probably not even a reason to build a wooden house. Now, why I like this feature is because it's more realistic. You know what I mean? If you have the goods to build something, you can build it right now. We can go ahead and start working on our, town hall or church or whatever, if we had the proper resources for it. Now, this kind of goes into another problem, though, to where you get to a point to where you build one of everything, and now you're just pretty much looking at playing a numbers game, and you're trying to keep your populace alive for the winter and everything. And there are a lot of things that go into it. See, down here we have these 2 bars, hearts and stars, so happiness and health of citizens. Okay. Now, as if we had, say, I built let's get some food going. So now I'm going to build a fishing hut, okay? And this is going to supply my people with a supply of fish to eat, okay? Wonderful. But, eating one, as healthy as fish are, eating one thing in your diet is not a very healthy thing, okay? And so the more diversity in your colonist diet, I guess, the healthier they will be, which seems to make sense since that's how it works in the real world as well. Okay, so sounds pretty good. Now, without going too far into depth with this game, I would say that if you like simulations games, definitely buy this one. I'd buy it right now on Good Old Games or Steam. It's very recommended. Now, if you are on the fence about it, then I would say hold off until you have a $5 sale or $10 sale, or it's heavily discounted or something like that. Now, the reason why I say that is because there's no real direction for the game. After you get past a certain, difficulty level of trying to get your colonists to survive, and you've have a steady income of food and steady income of resources and wood chopped and everything like that, and clothes and everything, which, don't get me wrong, it takes I'd say 3-4 days to get to that point, because your first couple experiences are probably not going to end well, which is definitely what I love so much about this game. But once I got to the point where I could, survive, then it wasn't such a great experience. It was kind of a little bit more meddling and more boring, and that's where it kind of, the game's, I guess, lack of depth, reared its ugly head. Okay. So first, and there's also another thing that I really don't like is, it's down here, it'll tell you little things, that are wrong, warn you things. Like, for instance, here, this household needs some wood cut, so they need some logs cut, you know what I mean, and brought to their house. And so that's a nice, visible, icon so you can tell what's happening. Same with your colonists, like these two, need houses and whatnot. Now, let me go ahead and I'm going to open up a one of my saves, and I worked on this for a couple days, this town, and I call it Digitown. Okay, and let's slow it down a bit. And as you see, it's pretty nice. I've got a nice bridge over the water. Here's my trading post. Okay, and I have a bunch of crop fields. Here's a bunch of wheat fields. Okay, here is some corn field. Okay, here's an orchard. One cool thing about orchards is that when you plant them, it takes a couple years for them to grow into nice big trees and actually have a good harvest. Here I have other crops, which I think here are beans, and over here's potatoes. Okay, and here's my brewery. Here's a bunch of houses. I got my chapel and everything looks pretty great, right? Well, there is a problem. Okay, and the problem is that people keep dying of old age, and you would think, okay, well, no problem. As people die of old age, children are going to be born and they're going to become adults and everything. But here lies my problem. Here's just another one, just died of old age, and I don't have anyone to replace that person. And so I have 66 adults, 3 students, and 2 children. Okay, so, eventually, 66 of those people are going to die of old age, and I'm going to have 2 probably by the time they die, maybe 10, 12, to replace them. And so, it starts to get a little frustrating, you know what I mean? Like, you have, such a good system going, and then, your colonists, they don't die of natural disasters or cold or weather or anything like that, but they just die of old age, and they aren't procreating enough, to keep your population up. And so that was a big problem that I encountered, and I must say that it has kind of hindered me from wanting to play the game further than this point. So if you're, again, going back to it, if you're a strategy fan, pick this game up. It's a great city builder, very relaxing. It has a good amount of depth. It could absolutely use more depth and more of a in-game goal sort, so to speak. But if you're like what you see and you're on the fence for it, definitely wait for a $5, $10 sale to go on Steam or Good Old Games, and yeah. But overall, it's a fun game. I did enjoy it. I'm not a fan of rating things on the 1 to 10 scale, but I'd say this game's a 7. It could have been an 8 very easily. It could have been one of the better city builders ever, but instead, it's a 7. So, and yeah, I hope you liked my review. Be sure to leave comments. Be sure to subscribe. Again, this is my first video game review, so there will be more in the future. And leave me comments. Let me know how I can improve it. All right, thanks.